Pod. Exciting episode to finally get to see some real basketball going on right now. I think that's incredible. We're recording this just a little after 6 p.m. Excuse me, a little bit before 6 p.m. Eastern. So West Coast Takeover semifinals are going to be happening, and then obviously the final. So by the time this releases, by the time you're listening to this, those games will be decided. So we don't really have much to go off of them. That being said, did want to do a little all-player initial reaction from the Sunset Beach tournament, and then also note a couple guys that kind of stood out from the Basketball Without Borders game from over the weekend. So it's going to be quick hitters, just kind of the initial kind of reaction from guys. And yeah, we might do the same thing for Thursday's pod after West Coast Takeover, but we'll see how we'll see what comes about. So anyway, all right, let's get to it. All right, so Sunset Beach. We'll start with Trey Turner. He's the biggest name coming into the tournament, and I think there was a little bit of some confirmation from that game. So one of the things that I'd always been concerned about with Trey Turner was he struggles, in my opinion, to get his own scoring off the dribble. He's very much a Klay Thompson type, really great shooter. We saw that. It's still there. But he's not somebody that you look at one-on-one that kind of scares you, at least in my opinion. I thought we saw a lot of that. He really struggled to get into the paint off the dribble against Pope. And then on the flip side, he got exposed by Pope's speed. He just doesn't have that same type of quickness that some of these top guys also seem to possess, in my opinion. He's a good unit defender, a good team defender, so in a 3v3 environment, he kind of gets exposed in that instance. But he still didn't have that one-on-one jump off the page, jump off the court capability on both ends of the court. He did get into the paint at one point. I thought that was more due to an overplay by Pope than it was by Turner really doing much. That was on a drive. Pope extended out to Pope's right to Turner's left, and that just opened up the lane. And then once Turner got about a step on him, he was able to just kind of keep him on the back hip. Very kind of late stage Chris Paul, kind of what we're seeing. Chris Paul's not going to be blowing past you, but if he's savvy enough to get past you, he's going to find a way. I don't know if Trey Turner's quite savvy enough in that instance. He was. I don't know, but I didn't see a lot of that over the course of the game to make me think that's what it was. A lot of the action, almost all the action, was Turner on ball. It almost looked like he didn't trust his teammates. Again, it's 3v3. It's really tough to kind of judge how you play in the flow of a basketball game in a 3v3 environment. But that was just kind of one of the things. It seemed like he was really trying to showcase him on ball. That just really wasn't there. That or just lack of trust of who he had next to him. As I said, three-point shot is still there, but he's kind of seemed adamant against shooting the midi. He had multiple open mid-range shots, and he just pulled it out to shoot a three, or he'd drive in again, get contested, and then try a layup. So kind of one of those things where you'd like to see him take the shot when it becomes available. All right, moving on to Rhodes. He missed multiple open looks that were created by off-ball screens, and that's, to me, that's tough. You would like to see him be able to knock down shots when they're there. He also didn't really show any ability to meet his man off the dribble. He did dust Anderson at one point when it was 12-11. But other than that, he just didn't look like a guy that, hey, let's turn the ball over to him. So it just kind of, he just left a taste of, man, I wish there's a little bit more that we could offer. All right, Keandre Baldridge, he didn't do a ton of things, and I think this is always a danger to me when a guy is in in any environment, and you kind of be like, oh yeah, that's right, he's on the floor. Kind of what Keandre Baldridge did. Midway through the game, he did show some muscle in getting into the paint. I think that was in the semifinal. But other than that, he just didn't strike me as anything. And again, that's even more concerning if it's a 3v3 environment where you're just like, that's right, he's playing this game, and I haven't seen anything from him. That's concerning. Moving to Trey Hyman, he didn't look out of place as a ball handler. Now, that's not me saying he is a ball handler, because he wasn't exactly elite either. But all in all, that's a great skill set for a big, especially a guy of his size. So You liked that he was at least competent on ball. I don't think anybody at this level or the next is going to turn the ball over to Trey Hyman and say you're going to be our lead playmaker, our guy with the ball in his hands 30% of the time. That's not going to happen. But to be able to have that capability, I should say that's not likely to happen, but for him to have that kind of in his bag of tricks, and if that improves, that's really positive. Really good interior presence on the offensive end. He did overpower Baldridge quite a bit. I said midway through the game, Baldridge had about one play in that matchup. Other than that, it was all Trey Hyman. Off the dribble, when he did get in there, and especially if he's going to be matched up with guys a little bit less athletic than him, he would like to see a little bit more aggression to finish the drive. I thought there was a couple instances where he'd pull up about from 8 to 10 feet, try to get a floater, try to get a finesse finish. You'd like to see him get up in there and make a really aggressive play at the hoop. Maybe the capability for him to be a stretch big. He hit a 3 in the second game. That's a positive sign. If he adds that to it, that's just going to add to his versatility and difficulty in guarding him. So all in all, I think that to surprise no one, Trey Hyman had a really good tournament. Xavier Pope really jumped off the page, and I think his numbers have kind of reflected that in the latest ESPN rankings, or in the current ESPN rankings, I should say. Really efficiently on multiple occasions got past Trey Turner. I don't know that that's an indication of Trey Turner being, right, we've talked about he's not a great defender, but the fact that Xavier Pope made it look as effortless as he did, that's really exciting. And he locked down Turner off the dribble. Again, is that a sign of Trey Turner not being great at those two things, or is that a sign of Pope? I'm going to err on the side of it's a little bit of both, kind of a cheap out. Pope looked really good. He exposed weaknesses that Turner, I think, already has. That's really great. Great bag of tricks offensively. He wasn't just a pull-up. He wasn't just to show off these dribbles and get to the paint. He had a really nice fadeaway that he hit at one point. It's a really deep bag. That's really, you like to see that. And then no hesitancy. When the open look was there, he took it. Whether that was a mid-range, that was a layup, whether that was a 3. Talked about Trey Turner being almost allergic to a mid-range because it's not a 3-point shot. Xavier Pope didn't suffer from that. Had open shots, he took them. You really like that aggressiveness to say, this is what the offense, this is what the flow of the game has given me. If this is a great shot, I'm taking it. You want to make sure that it kind of goes to that Warriors methodology. Pass up a decent shot for a great shot. So long as he's not taking the first shot that comes to him early in shot clocks because it's there and saying, look, if this is an 8 out of 10 on the shot quality, let's try to find a 10, then that's my only thing. But look, that's a great problem to have because he's aggressive, he sees an open look, and he takes it. Those are all positive things. Moving over to Royce Anderson. Had a solid mid-range at one point when the game was 9-9. Like to see that. Again, not every time is a 3 or a layup going to be there, so the ability to find something in the middle. The mid-range analytically is dead, but in actuality it's not. You still need the mid-range. It's why great players such as Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, they thrive in the mid-range. Devin Booker has shown that most recently at the NBA level. You still need that. Royce Anderson at least showed some glimpses of that being there. That was not only did he hit a mid-range, he also hit a nice floater. Again, that versatility and how to show. He had a good block on Rhodes, and if my memory serves me right, he didn't really finish the play. I think Levi Rhodes got the rebound and went back up with it, but that presence inside, that's a positive. On the ball, he really didn't do anything that blew you away. I think a lot of his offense was created off the ball, which is fine. You don't really need a team full of guys or a league full of guys that create on ball. There's going to be guys that can't. At this point, it looks like Royce Anderson is best served off the ball. If he can add to that, that's great. But to be an off-the-ball creator primarily, that's fine, especially as he goes to Bay Area. He's going to have Caden Shipp with him, who is a very competent on-ball creator. I really like that Royce Anderson will add to that team. He was consistent, okay? He was in the right place at the right time on both ends, whether that was defensively, getting a block, cutting off a lane, or offensively, coming off screens, getting open, finding open looks. He was just consistently doing the right thing. If you do that, there's a long runway of a basketball future. So from Royce Anderson, I really like that. I'll go quick through Dominic Bianco because, look, we know what we're getting from him. He's very fast. He gets to the paint. He beat Ethan Letterman quite a bit off the dribble. He beat Xavier Pope on one possession or a couple possessions. take that back. It was 3 straight possessions. I'm sorry, 3 straight possessions in which Bianco took Pope off the dribble. That's great. But that's what we thought we'd see from Dominic Bianco. So nothing really new there. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Tayshaun Eason, look, he's not an on-ball threat. There was multiple times where he just did not take advantage of being an on-ball threat. He had a smaller guy, he had a guard on him, and he settled for a turnaround jumper instead of getting deeper in the paint. In general, he settled a lot. Don't like that. A guy of his size, you need to find some way to stand out, whether that's defensively, whether that's offensively. He didn't do that. Jay Laster, complete opposite. Very much an on-ball threat. Very, very quick with the ball. Early on, he pulled out for a step back when he could have drove. That would be my only kind of critique. I'm pretty sure he made that shot. So it's not a bad thing that he can hit it. But overall, if that's a tendency that continues to prolong and that shot doesn't continue to fall, that's the only thing you'd be like, hey, let's keep an eye on it. But at this point in time, that's not a concern. It's just a note. But very great on the ball, really efficient getting into the paint. He did a great job, and he showed a knack for getting to his spots, which, again, you love to see. All right, Ethan Letterman, quiet game. Didn't see him or hear from him much in the game we were watching. He, as I mentioned, Bianco got into the paint, both on and off the ball. That's kind of going to be par for the course. Bianco's very fast, might be the fastest guy in the league, at least was one of the fastest last year, but we didn't see a lot of him. And again, as we talked about earlier on with Keandre Baldridge, if we're not seeing you in a 3v3, that's a little concerning. He did miss some tough layups inside. He did have a really good, on the positive side, he had a really good attentive off-ball cut to make the game 10-9 at one point. You like that? But overall, just kind of a good thing, that can be a bad thing. Malachi Ammons showed some toughness driving on Laster at some point. You'd like to see that. You like that aggressiveness. He came alive against Jakob later in the game. He showed some assertiveness. That's what you want to see. I thought earlier on in the game he didn't show that. So being more consistent from beginning to end would be the one takeaway. Gil Blumenstein, rough start from deep, 0-2. I'm pretty sure one of those was an air ball, and I immediately am thinking, is this guy not gonna be a deep threat? He proceeds to hit his next 2 threes and then a very contested mid-range. What does it mean? It's a small sample size. It's going to be easy to pull from that game, whatever you choose to pull from it. He's a great shooter. He's not a good shooter. I think it's positive that he rebounded the way he did. Some guys are going to airball 3, and they're going to move on and say, I'm not shooting another one. He went back to the well, and he got some success. That's good. Off-ball defense was a little lazy. He didn't come over to help on a Bianco drive. He allowed a couple easy looks inside from Isom early on. Off-ball, not super attentive. On the ball, much different story. Very sound defender on ball. You like that presence that he possessed. Despite hitting some good shots from deep, I thought there was a couple times inside the paint where he didn't score. I thought he had quite a few options, or opportunities, I should say, to do that. So just kind of rounding out that game would be the biggest thing for Gil Blumenstein. But overall, you like to see that perimeter threat that he possessed. All right, moving to basketball without borders. I'm not going to go into every single guy like we just did. So just some guys that jumped off the page. We'll start with the ones that you can't have, or at least you're going to have to do some convincing. Khalid Ali. Run DMV, Myron Murray. I think I talked about this on the broadcast with B-Run. Run DMV did not get any of those big stars initially. Okay? They missed out on DJ Wagner. They missed out on Mbako. They got Khalid Ali, and he is an extremely sound team player and an extremely great rebounder. He showed that in Basketball Without Borders. Really liked how he kind of controlled the game by rebounding. He didn't jump off the page. He wasn't a great playmaker. He didn't score a ton, but his ability to control the glass, again, having one skill that you can point to and say, that's what that guy does, that's what gets you to the next level, and that's what gets you beyond. Being adequate at everything might make you, in this instant, as an overall player better, but it's not going to make you better at the next level. If you have that one skill that kind of jumps out above everybody else, and then you build up the rest, that's going to be more effective in getting you past, and I thought Khalid Ali showed that. Sime Domingos, fearless getting to the paint. He got blocked by Abraham Kasongo, who we'll talk about in a second. Got blocked multiple times, and he just kept going back, man. And you like that. You like to see that guy that's not afraid to get beat, who's not afraid of the rejection. Similar to what we just talked about with Go Blumenstein. Misses 2 threes, goes back to the well. Domingos gets swatted. He says, I'm going right back, man. I'm going, and one of us is going to win this battle, and I'm going to bet 5 times out of 10 it's going to be me. And if I could do that, if I could hang on you 5 times out of 10, a great defender, I'm going to be okay. You like that kind of attentiveness, that assertiveness, rather, excuse me. Abraham Kasongo, great defender. He had multiple jaw-dropping blocks. Moved well. He got beat a couple times, but he was just in the right place. And his length, I mean, my goodness, his length allowed him to be that good of a defender. At the same time, he was really bad offensively. I mean, really, really bad offensively. He didn't play that great there. He just was slow, wasn't able to create shots for himself. He didn't allow himself to be a factor. So as great as he was a defender, he's there. He's limited. But again, just like Khalid Ali, I think Ali's more well-rounded in other facets of his game than Kasongo is. But Kasongo's got that, holy cow, look at what we got here. This is something. And that's his defensive side of the ball. Zudi, I don't have his first name written down, unfortunately, but he had 7 points. He showed a really effectiveness at getting into the paint. Good driver, didn't jump off the page in other facets, but he showed that he just kept showing up in the paint, kept showing up with the ball in the paint, getting into the paint. He didn't finish every single time, obviously, but getting into the paint was a great one. Because he's there, he's actually one of the 2 that are available. I'm saving the best for last year. But Zudi's a guy, he's unrostered. So you got Kasongo, you got Domingos, they're both SimWorld Africa. If somebody wants to swoop in and get him, I suppose he probably could. And then Khalid Ali, he's committed to Run DMV. Last guy, this guy's available. I think he shouldn't be. At least he showed he shouldn't be. Lassina Traore. My goodness, was he quick. Good driver. On both ISO, great use of the pick and roll, extremely fast. We kind of saw this with Edgar Fernandez last season, a very similar approach. Starts off the season, nobody knows who he is on the international scene. Out of nowhere, he starts dominating with his speed. I think he had a 20-piece against, I want to say it was Africa. And it was just kind of like, holy moly, what do we have here? Traore, showed a lot of that. Really great on ball, really effective getting into the paint. I think he missed one in the paint, but it wasn't something that you'd be surprised by. He had a really great off-ball cut. I think that's the one that he missed. Great off-ball cut, got the feed, just couldn't finish it. But just his speed, man. Again, don't get lost in a basketball game. Traore refused to get lost. In fact, to the point that in the fourth quarter, Team Gray was trailing. 7-0 run on his own, drew the timeout from Team Blue, got Gray back in this game. Game that they had led early and then just kind of fell behind and never really was able to make much momentum to get back there. Traore single-handedly did it. The confusing part was that he then shortly after that got benched. You wonder what that's about, but that allowed Team Blue to actually flip it back. Team Gray had rallied back to take the lead. Team Blue kind of swooped back, took a big lead. All of that was with Traore on the bench. He's available. He really shouldn't be. So coaches, putting this nugget at the end, get out there and get this guy. He should not be available for much longer. I know the commitment deadline has been moved, but my goodness, you got to find a way to get this gig because he could be a difference maker for you. All right, we'll be back on Thursday. Probably chat a little bit about West Coast TakeOver.